So I wanted to do a video on the next step of learning Ground Red, and the further you go into it, obviously the harder it is. More importantly, the harder it is to explain. So we all have kind of different ways of thinking about the game, and so this is specifically the way that I think about it. Even players that do something very similar or the exact same, they may have different ways of thinking about it, but this is the way that I think about it, so it's the only way I can translate it for you guys. And the other side of things is, when you play the game, you improve, you develop, you change and build up your style. You don't really think about it in the same way. You kind of just naturally learn it off what things work and what things don't work. So I know how to do a lot of stuff with Ground Red, but it doesn't mean I know how to explain it. And it becomes difficult because you've got to go back and think, why do you do certain things, and how would I explain it to someone else? And it's a good process because you start thinking about things and you put more logic into your style, and it improves you because you kind of improve little aspects of it. So I apologize if this is going to be difficult to explain, but it is something that I think if you start working on this and actually get this into your head, it could improve you an awful lot. And so the basics of it is, there are different ways that you can swing your saber, or do ground or jumps. And in my head, I think of it as doing blunt or sharp. And obviously there's bits in between where you can do something a little sharp or a little blunt, but we'll talk about two extremes to begin with, and then we can think about, how it is a bit in between, and to mix them up a little bit. So when I say a blunt attack or a blunt swing or move, it's one where it's not focused on a single point. It's more focused on an area. So for example, if I do a Ground Red like this is covering an area. And because I'm not moving a huge amount in one direction, I can change my direction, go backside, this sort of thing. And it's more of a defensive swing. It covers area. If I'm doing a push of someone, it's more blunt than it is sharp. It's more controlled and flexible. And the flexible part's really, really important. So with blunt, you can change it up a little bit. So I can stop at any point, move to the side, follow somebody, and be really, really flexible. And this helps with defense. Obviously, if I'm up against a staff or something, I can change directions and he'll be going left, right, or whatever, try and get past me. And I can push forward at some point if I want to make a bit more space. Sorry, the cat again. Because let's say there's a staffer in front of me and I'm doing this, they're going to push forward into me. But if I want, I can push forward a little bit. Still blunt. Still, I'm letting the saber swing fully in front of me. I'm not turning my mouse. I'm just aiming. So a lot of what I talked about in the first video was blunt. And if I go for a push or something, as I say, I'd go up close to them and then I'd start swinging and move a bit forward and push them, blah blah blah. And it's more focused on, as I say, pushing, defense, and just controlling space, rather than doing damage or attacking. So there are definitely strengths with this, and this is the type of swing that I do more than the other, because the other is more risky, high risk, high reward. And so at the beginning of a game, if you watch me, Idri, and Terra, on balance between the three of us, we're doing this more than sharp attacks. We're not trying to hit, we're trying to push, make space, and slow down the enemy. And so, yeah, we usually start with this, unless we're very confident and we want to pressure the enemy straight away. So, and then as the round builds up, we'll start to do more and more sharp attacks, because we get to learn how the enemy plays, we know our timings, and we can implement a sharp attack, because as I say, they're more risky. Same with jump attacks. If I go for a jump attack and I want to cover space, it's something more like that, right? It's something just casual, not not focusing on one point, but more of the area. So if let's say that I have a teammate fighting somebody there, and they go for the attack, and I want to attack over here just because I think they're going to go over there, and I just want to cover the space, I'll just do something like that, so that I can aim it how I want, depending on what the enemy does, or maybe change up the jump a little bit in mid-air. Compared to a sharp attack would be very much a specific point. And it means that if the enemy moves or that doesn't work out, changing it to hit something else is very, very difficult, or much more difficult. So yeah, sharp attack. Sharp attack would be as you would think it. It's focusing on one point. Jumps are easy to explain, that's why I've started with that. I'm going for that corner. I know exactly where I'm going for. I'm going to go for this corner. It's focusing on a very specific point. And as you notice, I turned my mouse on this one. So when I jumped, I ended it with this, because I'm focusing on one point. And that's more, you have a much better idea exactly what's going to happen, and you're trying to do damage. That's pure, I'm going to kill somebody here. Same with ground red. If I'm fighting somebody, if you imagine them just in front of me somewhere like here, and I want to go for a ground red attack to kill, I'm more like straight line, getting in there, hammering it. And it can have a lot of strength. And it's like if I really want to bully somebody and really want to push back a staff or fuck them over or disrupt them or whatever, this is where I go. This is where the killer move comes in. And I have to time it, I have to watch the movement, because obviously it's the bigger risk. This is the much, much bigger risk. If I go fully into somebody and they're just ready for me, they can do one of two things that are going to fuck me. One is the obvious, they're going to spam me. Staff duels, yellow. If I start it, because you start this stuff usually relatively close, now the swing comes in. So that whole beginning part, I'm fucked, and I'm going to die if they spam me. So you've got to be careful, and that's why the timing is important. The other thing is obviously crouching for the same reason. You have less control over this. This is less flexible, and I'll explain why in a minute. So if they're like in front of me and I do this and they crouch, I'm going to be touching them model to model. I'm going to have to jump away. There's going to be a clash, and I might get parried. So you've got to be really, really careful with this sort of stuff. Timing's important, and being able to stop it is much more difficult. So you have to be really, really sharp with your eyes. And the reasoning is, and this is the difference between the two, is the obvious that they're both their focus for a certain point. Sorry, sharp is for a certain point, and blunt is for open space. But it's also about time. Sharp is there ready for a specific time. So if I go for the ground red here, that's the moment I'm hitting. The whole thing's focused on that one point. And so anything that happens before it and anything that happens after it doesn't matter. It's all focused on that one point. So I only want to be in range truly, unless I'm chasing someone, is at that point. That's the only point that it's effective. Same for jump attacks. And yesterday when I was reviewing the demo of Tyr, Esbad, Meth, and Suxa, is that they did jumps where they were too close, and therefore they're ready to hit way too late, and the enemies can hit you before you do it, because you jump. Your two models would hit each other, and then there's a small pause before your swing comes out. So that means you're doing that jump kind of wrong, and you're probably using jump wrong. What you could do instead is less direct, less sharp, and just do something like that, which makes it a little bit. You're not jumping as far, and you're just swinging at a space. And that would mean if they wanted to come hit you, they're going to have to step forward, and their timing is going to be different, and it's going to be a lot better for you, rather than trying to do this and going in for a very specific point. The other thing is, when defending, you are also doing the exact same thing. I saw lots of this sort of stuff. Now, as I said, this type of swing is for sharp. You're attacking a very specific point, and so you only want to get, most of the time, in range when you're ready to hit. And so you only want to be in range for very small amounts of time. Now, now, and you're using this for defense, means that all that Mario was the player. All that Mario had to do is not get in range at that one point. They could hit early, you could hit straight after. You're creating no space for yourself, and you're a threat for one moment. It's different if you've jumped and they're jumping and you're doing like a one hit there just to like fuck them over, where you can get them to jump into you, because your swing is going into action at the exact moment that you want, and they can't do anything about it. They're going to land. They've got no choice about that. But if they're on the ground and you're defending and you're doing this sort of stuff, you're attacking one point in time, which is so easy to work around. The other thing is that you got no movement doing that sort of stuff. So the other side of it is when you're doing something like this or like this, your movement's shit. It's compromised, and especially if you're crouching and doing this, then you get getting no movement at all. So it's much easier for a staffer or duels to stand in position just outside of range and then push in the moment your swing's finished. However, this, so much more movement, so much more chill. You can just push him back a little bit and then just fuck off. You can just easily create a bit of space. Because as I said before, I know I'm using extremes, that blunt is defense is more like is just pure defensive or whatever, and you use sharp for attack. But you've got to mix them up and move in between them. I could start like this and then push forward a little bit. So I start completely blunt, but change it with a little bit of sharpness at the end there. Or I could go for a sharp attack and suddenly stop and do it blunt. If I'm attacking a staffer or something like that and I feel like I'm overextending, I'll stop, because they may just suddenly crouch and spam, and I'm ready for that if I do that. So each attack can change between sharp and blunt, but also you can, not everything is 100% sharp or 100% blunt. If I push forward a little bit, there's a little bit of sharpness to that, just a little bit. Or if I'm pushing forward and I'm just like, I want to say hesitating, but it's not the right word. If I'm not fully committing all of it, then there's a little bit of bluntness to it. I often will just tap my forward button in certain situations to slow myself down a little bit to not overextend. And it's that kind of thing that you've got to get used to. And if you want a rule of thumb, an easy way to kind of like get into your head whether a certain hit is that you're doing is blunt or sharp, wiggle. If I'm doing blunt and I wiggle, it's like that. It's in front of me. It's covering a large area usually. It's like that. So if I'm fighting a staff and they jump into me, I'm doing that. If I'm doing sharp though, most of the time, if I'm going for a wiggle, it's like that. There's a turn into it and you're wiggling like that. I know it's like all obviously, but we've all done these two different kinds of wiggles before, and probably not thought about it too much. But one, you never do one that's half in between. You never do like, oh shit. You never do like like that. It doesn't make much sense. You kind of like focus it on more of a small area. It's damage. It's focused on one spot. And if you do a blunt, it's more a bit wider area because you're trying to cover that space in front of you. Because when they get up close, they can change position quite quickly. So you've got to think, try to get into your head, am I using blunt or am I using sharp here? And if I'm using the wrong one in the wrong time, I need to start trying to get my habit to change, and also thinking about how I use it. Because as I say, blunt is more about, sorry cat, more about flexibility. If somebody's crouching against me, loads of people will overcommit or go for a big hit or something. I, most of the time, just do something like this and turn a little bit. That's it. I'm just aiming low. I'm keeping it blunt. I'm making sure that I don't overextend. I can fall back. I take a step back from the block, the crouch block, and I just hit underneath it. Or sometimes I don't turn at all and I just do something like that. If you're unable to do that, then you're probably doing it wrong and you're probably trying to be too sharp. If you're ground reading and you're getting too close and they crouch you, maybe you need to like chill a little bit when you think you're overcommitting. And if you're defending, which is the big one, which is the one that'll help you the most looking at how people are playing, if you're defending and you're focusing on one point and turning, you're doing it wrong. Because that, as I'll keep hammering it in, this is only useful for that one moment there in that one spot. You want to be thinking more broad, more flexible to help you create space. And you can push them. You can do a blunt push, which is what, as I say, what we do an awful lot, to try and push them back a little bit, maybe get in a small hit or whatever, make them a bit of space for you, or make it hard for them to push in. Because obviously a staffer wants to be moving towards you. If you just do that as they're coming in, you stop them from moving towards you, and they have to like stop or fall back a little bit. And watching how you guys got pressured the other day, absolutely rammed, when it was like 2v1 or something, or Mario's chasing you, something like this, and then there's chilling, would have stopped his movement a lot. And instead, you guys are there, and it ain't gonna help anything. So I wanted to do this video just to get you guys to think about blunt and sharp, basically. And as I say, apply it to your jumps as well. That's a sharp one. It was focused on a point at the time. That's more general. And I know jumps are always more sharp than they are blunt, but you can make them slightly more blunt by just covering space. And I often do something like this, just like, oh, I think he's going to dodge in this area, I'll get there early, sort of thing. I'll make a prediction. And I think that's everything I wanted to do. And if you ever watch me or somebody like that, well, I guess just me at the moment, using Ramred, just to see how I change between blunt and then maybe sharp or something like that, or you know, mixing it up a little bit with my movement, or stopping and cancelling and stuff like that. It's purely thinking about blunt and sharp. I promise you, there's nothing more complicated, and it is a little bit of a difficult topic to explain, but I hope this made it a little bit clearer. And the video's not that long, but I think, yeah, I think it was good. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Peace out.